Welcome to our discussion on Excel as requested by many. And since we have difficulty in the connections and not everybody can see the screen share, so from now on we'll be doing an asynchronous way of discussing the software that we'll be using. Okay. So as for Excel, it's a spreadsheet software. So it's commonly used in scientific research in marine and environmental sciences, and it suffice to say it's the butter to the bread of our word processing software. Where here in Excel, we actually input the data, encode the data, manage the data, even rearrange it a little bit, and ultimately, at times, where we actually do our analyses if it doesn't really need any complicated statistical analysis done on it. So starting off with the basics, this entire area here is the interface. You have the home tab here, which basically covers pretty much the copy paste function, the font, the alignment, the number, and the styles, and whether you want to insert, delete, or format the cells in your worksheet, and also a few editing options around here where we'll discuss these later on. And here, the insert, so you can actually pivot the table, which we rarely use this function here, and we do insert a couple of illustrations, images, and shapes here. Whether we're planning to do, we're planning to make diagrams and such uh, for certain presentations. And the most important bit over here are the charts, where actually with Excel alone, you can actually do or make charts and graphs for your presentations, your papers, or your thesis in the future. The only problem that I have with the Excel charts is its lack of editability, if that's a word, because I've always had a problem with the charts in Excel because if you try to edit one thing, then then it manages to change the whole chart itself. So if you're editing one value over there, and it's just going to go kaput. And we have other functions here, which we're not going to use except probably for the equation area and the symbol, because sometimes you need to insert certain symbols and such. Next is the layout, which is basically manages the layout of the spreadsheet, and we have formulas over here, so we can actually choose. This is a recent addition, if I'm not mistaken, to the feature of Excel. So we can actually select several functions over here and formulas. So we have the sum, average, count, maximum, and minimum. Then the data, I don't really have use for this as well for the review and well, the view, it's more or less for your preference in viewing the software. Okay, so now we're done with the basic interface. I'm going to teach you or discuss with you how to properly encode your data. So I have a water sample data here, and as you can see, it's in different values are in different columns and are labeled accordingly. So we usually use the first row as the label. So I'm gonna put it into bold right here. And the label here describes the values or the values in the cells underneath it. As for this, we have transect. So and it's labeled accordingly, whether it's transect number one, transect number two, and so on, which we're probably going to discuss further in future subjects. And then we have a quadrat over here. So it's quadrat, not quadrant. Excuse me. Then again, salinity, pH, and the phosphate analysis, parts per million, and ammonia analysis. So one thing you'll notice here is that the values under the values inside the cells here within the columns are just plain numbers. We don't put any units here. So for example, we don't put the pH like so, or here and here. Okay, so we don't do it like this. We normally use the labels here to indicate what unit we're already using. So as a given example, so for example, we have a length here. We already put the unit of measurement or cm or mm in the label, and we only put values here. So 12, 14, 16, 15, 16, 8, so on. We don't put the units inside the cell. So now let's try and see what would happen if we put the units of measurement inside the cell. So again, we're gonna insert a bar chart. Let's go with the bar chart. So as you can see, because there are two different values, so you have a numerical value and a text value. So this doesn't register well with Excel or any other high-end software or graphing or statistical software that you have. So you normally put, so you never put the units of measurement inside the cell. So you just keep it. Let's go back as such. And let's try making a bar chart again. So let's include the label and such. There we go. So this presents a much cleaner, well, actually, it presents a functional graph rather than having to put the units inside. Okay, so now let's remove that. Okay, next we're going to look at the time series data. So a time series data is any data set or data points that you collected on different on a chronological scale, so to speak. So it could be time in terms of minutes, hours, days, or years, and so on. So as per the example here, it's on different months of different years, going from July 2013 to October 2015. On a side note, I would like to mention that when encoding data on Excel, it automatically assumes the date that, or sometimes it's going to automatically assume the date that you actually input there. So one example would be, let's say it's August, Aug 29, and it's automatically going to format it in a correct manner or in a manner that it understands. And you can actually change this by going here and select the type of date that you prefer. So you can change it into month, date, year, or month, year, uh, or with the day, or just the month and the day, and so on and so forth. Also, I would like to discuss another thing when it comes to decimal points. So usually we only use two decimal points when it comes to writing or encoding our data. But there will be times when you collect data points with more than uh, several decimal points. And with this, you can actually change it from with this function over here where you can actually increase the decimal points available or decrease it altogether. Okay, so the cases for these are when you actually want to get a value, but when you want to measure something, but the values are too small and you want it to be as precise as possible. Therefore, you have to have more decimal points. So as you can see, if I just put it on one decimal place, it's just going to say 2. But in reality, it's not as accurate as what reality would present rather. So it's actually 0.198. The next function that we'll be discussing would be this the sorting again. So you can actually sort your data set depending on what preset that you want. So we can actually go in this sort and filter function over here in the home tab. So if you click on it, it's going to ask you whether it's the nearest or the oldest to newest or the newest to oldest. So let's say we want it in reverse chronological order. So definitely we're going to choose the newest to oldest function right here. So it's going to pop up a dialog where it shows that you only selected a few data points or cells, and you want to expand your and what do you want to do? So normally you would want to expand the selection because if you click expand the selection, it's going to include the other columns in the other data points in the other columns that it shares a row with. Then click on sort, then it's going to arrange it for you. So you have the 2015, the data points from 2015 here, the more the more recent ones and the later ones right at the bottom. This can be done also in terms of values, not just in dates. So you want to sort it highest to lowest to largest, smallest rather, to the smallest to the largest values, or the largest to the smallest. So again, it's going to pop up a dialog where it's going to ask uh, if you want to expand the selection, just say yes, and there you go. So again, with the highest species richness was found in July 2013, and the nitrates per million is 0.198. Can actually do a lot of things with this sort and filter uh, function. Now, some of the other functions of Excel are the equations. So, as you remember here, you can insert different functions uh, from the column over here, from the column, from the toolbar over here. And there are several, like really several. And you will probably, well, not probably, you will go through this in your biostatistics course. In For this course, I'm only going to teach you the basics just for encoding your data in Excel. So let's say you want to get the total number of species richness that you found in throughout the time, through time from the earliest until October 2015. So what you want to do is put an equal sign first, then you type in sum. After typing in sum, you type in an open parenthesis, and it's going to ask you for the number. What you want to do is just highlight the cells that you actually want in your selection. Make sure you don't include the text because it's going to show an error because you cannot add the letters with numbers. And there. So now you've made your selection and press enter. So you have a total of 392 species observed in different sites, probably. Okay. So what about if you want to know the sum on 2013 and 2015 alone? Okay. So for the years 2013 and 2015, you're excluding 2014. So first, let's try to arrange this in chronological order. So we sorted from newest to oldest. Okay. So now we go back. We type in the box here. Now again, we're only going to take the sum of 2013 and 2014. So again, with this function here, equal sign, sum, open parenthesis. Now you select the values. After selecting it, you type in a comma. So now, as you saw earlier, it was in a more key. Now it's all solid lines. And now you make your next selection as again for the 2015, and you start clicking it and selecting the values. So now you made two different selections. So, and you excluded the 2014 dataset. Then you just press enter, and Excel will automatically fill in the closing parenthesis. And there you have it. And you can do this as for as many selections as you want, depending on where and how you need it. Okay? So the next function would be the count function. So I actually use two different count functions. One would be count a count, and another would be count A. First, let's go with count. So count is the function that just counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. So numbers and any are values. So again, you just make a selection and press enter. So it's going to count basically the number of cells that you've selected, and that's it. What if you have a type of data where there are a few values missing? So we use count A, and we select and we press enter. Okay, so it's going to show you that you actually have, oh, let's remove this first. You have 23 cells with values in it. This is actually useful if you're making a species list and you want to count the number of species present in that list, or you're making a count of anything basically. Okay, so now we try to undo everything. Lastly, or second to the last function would be the average or the mean. It's just a straightforward way of doing it. It's just pretty much equal sign, then typing in average and having a open parenthesis at the end, then selecting it and pressing enter. So now you know that the average species richness for the entire 28 surveys was only 14. Hmm, What's wrong? Okay. And lastly, This is really important when you're getting the mean, you also have to get the standard deviation. So standard deviation, so again, you- if you're getting the mean of the entire column, you should also get the standard deviation of the entire column. This is only applicable when you're doing replicates or you're trying to do meet the average values, which again you will learn in the future in your biostatistics course, which is much more hardcore than this. Okay, with that, that's the end of the Excel basics. Now, next part would be discussing the sigma plot.